In the Second World War, I saw enough of combat to develop a hate for war as a means of settling differences between men. But I also know that the integrity and the word of a great nation must be maintained. If the United States finally loses its role as a great nation in this world, the loss to freedom in the Western world is unimaginable. I don't believe that Senator Yarborough is contributing to a solution to this war. I don't believe that by his actions in this regard, he's contributing to the best interest of the people of the United States. I'm under no illusions about this being a tough race. I know that. Anytime you take on an incumbent United States Senator with all the powers of the office, with his powerful friends in and outside of Texas, and I'm sure a well-financed campaign, that's a job.
Do you characterize yourself as a Connolly Democrat?
I characterize myself as a moderate. And to me, a moderate is this. A moderate is a man who approaches the issues with an open mind and votes them as he sees them, who doesn't try to get attached or identified with a clique or a faction. That's what I think a moderate is, and I think that's what it takes to help bring together the Democratic Party of Texas.
A standard metropolitan statistical area is something Washington dreamed up, but it's something that apparently is going to be very good for the Dallas-Fort Worth area. Here at the Inn of Six Flags today, Harry Wurst of the Fort Worth Chamber of Commerce and Warren Woodward of the Dallas Chamber of Commerce, their aides and associates, got together and agreed that Dallas and Fort Worth should cooperate even more in the decade to come than they ever have before. That includes an SMSA.
When it is accomplished, what status will it give Dallas and Fort Worth in the metropolitan comparisons across the United States?
Well, for a few highlights. In population, where in Fort Worth there'd be 51 ranking in the national rankings of population, Dallas 16. We then move into place 11, 11th largest area in the United States. On households, where Fort Worth is rated at 50 in the nation, Dallas 16, the combination will move us to 11th largest city in the largest area in households.
Would you list for us, please, the major reasons you've done this?
Well, marketing, the broad scope of marketing, which advertising is the means of communicating.
Modern businessmen rely heavily, exclusively almost, on marketing statistical data. And what we're attempting to do here is to give them the accurate picture of this North Texas area. In fact and indeed, it is one statistical metropolitan area. And we're simply going to combine the figures for Dallas and Fort Worth and make them one. And the businessman will have accurate information to rely on.
The final plan has to be in Washington by January 30th, or they might miss the 1970 census, something obviously they can't afford to do. And so, in 1970, if all goes well, and they expect it will, Dallas and Fort Worth will become a combined metropolitan market as far as the numbers go, and will become the 11th largest market in the United States. From the Inn of the Six Flags, this is Jerry Taft, Channel 8 News.
Would you place any validity to the thought that this ball club lets down when the brakes go against them?
Gosh, I'd hate to think so, Vern. I don't think any of my teammates have let me down. I tried not to let them down. Like I say, we're human beings. We're going to make mistakes. We made a lot of mistakes last week. I can't see that anybody's let anyone down. Coach Landry's more or less taken the blame for it, and I can't accept that either. We each individually, as well as everyone together on the Cowboy organization, has to take the blame for losing. He's going to reevaluate the system. I'll have to reevaluate my play during the off season. I'll have to prepare myself to go into camp again next year. You know, it's kind of in a way, it's a letdown right now, but to be a champion, I feel you have to learn from your mistakes. You don't look back on your mistakes. If you accept defeat, you'll never be the champion that you plan on being. And my goal in life is to be a champion, not to be all pro and not to be the best individually. I want the team to be the best. And in order to do this, you gotta play like a team. So I've got to anticipate what I'm going to do next year by evaluating my mistakes this year, and if I can learn from my mistakes, it'll make the team a much better team.
What are your feelings about Mr. Coffey's action?
Well, of course, I find it pretty appalling and a little frightening that a district attorney would use the power of indictment to intimidate the court. I don't know of any time in Tarrant County's history that this has been done. I mean, when you use this power to say, court, either you vote for my budget request or I'm going to indict you. Of course, something that was mentioned last night that I thought was a little misleading is that at this get-together that I was invited to by Mr. Benson, Mr. Benson told the members that were present that Mr. Coffey's top assistant, Jim Morgan, had been invited, but that he had to be out of town on other business. But he did know about the meeting, so I don't think it was a secret as far as Frank was concerned. It looks to me a lot like that Mr. Coffey probably should spend more time worrying about criminals and indicting criminals in this county than worrying about the business of the court. No other department that I know of was unhappy with this. We're trying to put in a system, a classification system that will move this county out of the dark ages and into the 20th century.
Expect him to help me. Certainly hope that he does, and I hope that all of the rest of these friends I've talked to will help.
Finally, a little more tangible than the dream about. But it can be solutions, environmental. Oh, we have to work together on that. Well, again, the figure is there for the world to read.
All that one is over $3.
All right, down the fourth word. That's where the regional airport is. That's the largest area in the country. All of a sudden, it makes sense.
Yeah, that should do it. Thank you.
Now, you were quoted in the paper as saying that we can't expect the police department to be on guard 24 hours per day. So I'm willing to do the legwork and get the citizens organized to do the work necessary to protect their own homes and property. Now, are you suggesting a vigilante-type committee?
No, I'm suggesting a committee to go door to door to teach the homeowner the best ways to prepare their doors, their windows, so that they are more difficult to break into. Proper lighting system around their homes, perhaps burglar alarm systems, this type of thing. Plus having in their possession serial numbers, model numbers, year makes of all of their appliances. I have been astonished at the people that I ask, what is the serial number on your guns, your radios, your televisions, etc.? And I am no exception. We don't know. This group will go to an individual home and talk to these people. Give them these pamphlets with forms on the back. Show them how to fill them out. We will not keep these pieces of paper for our records in any case, but they will be asked to file these in their safety deposit boxes and their locked boxes.
No tax raise looms ahead in terms of Dallas County government this year. Neither County Auditor George Smith nor the county commissioners advocated an increase in taxes as Auditor Smith presented his proposed budget for 1970. Overall, the budget will be at about $34 million as proposed, $3 million over that of last year. But the added money comes from an increase in property value. The main point of dispute on the budget at this point is how to spend the money available, specifically whether or not to raise the salaries of county employees. Auditor Smith wants a 4 to 7% raise for employees depending on their classification. County Commissioner John Whittington wants to hold the line.
I think county personnel should be considered just exactly like a private industry. Private industry, to my knowledge, attempts to pay their employees what's generally being paid within the area that they work in, and I think county employees should be treated the same way.
Is this inconsistent, though, with a mood that's obviously reflected by you in your budget and the commissioners in wanting to hold the line on cost and budget?
No, it is not inconsistent. What I am suggesting is that we do not put on as many new people as has been requested, but those that we do have, that we pay a comparable pay that's being paid within the local area.
Taking all these things into consideration, I think this is a time to hold the level of salaries at their present level, with the idea that other employers, other governmental bodies may do the same thing, and as a result will benefit our own employees by stopping the spiral of the increased cost for everything that they have to purchase.
By the time of formal budget approval, January 31st, there may have been some compromise on this point. But even if the raises are granted, it's obvious that the county commissioners are in a mood to tighten up and shape up their spending and operations. This is Teal Salon at the Dallas County Courthouse.
This building, once a fire station in the Fort Worth Fire Department system, is now called Hattie Street Haven. And while it looks very little like what the name implies, it is a place for neighborhood preschoolers to have fun during the hours they might otherwise spend unattended. This center, and another like it, have just received grants from the Christian Church of Texas totaling more than $14,000. That money will ensure continuation of programs to serve both children and adults. Playground equipment, furniture, and craft supplies are all included in the Hattie Street program. Other ideas in community development and aid to the poor will bring up to $90,000 to Fort Worth churches and the areas in the community. It starts the community partnership effort. That partnership will team the residents of the area and church members in the solving of neighborhood problems. This is Gene Thomas, Channel 8 News in Fort Worth. The Fort Worth Park and Recreation Board has given approval to a plan that will fence the eastern perimeter of the zoo, as is the west. The board's action came as a direct result of the recent deaths of animals. The new fence will restrict traffic through areas where animals are kept in close proximity to the public, but will not take away from the visitors the chance to see them. The Fort Worth Zoo is housing about $2 million worth of animals, many of them very difficult to replace. Among them is a young lion named Tuco. Tuco was brought to the zoo near death from an internal intestinal infection. He had been born at the zoo in Tyler, Texas, and was rushed here for surgery by Fort Worth veterinarian Dr. William Kirksey. Now, Tuco is recovering from the operation and is under treatment for the disease and its after effects. When Tuco regains his health and is ready to take his place in public view, it'll be in a new area of the park, now being constructed. The area, depicting life as it is in the African wild, will house the young lion and his mate yet to be chosen. It'll give the zoogoers a first-hand look at Tuco's natural habitat. The project, like so many other fine areas of the zoo, costs a lot of money. The animals to be placed there are valuable. The zoo and the Park and Recreation Board hope to place some degree of protection for the exhibits here. Their wish is not to restrict the zoo visitor, but like so many other public areas, the zoo is often the target for vandals and those who must be separated, at least to some degree, from the animals which are placed here for all to enjoy. This is Gene Thomas, Channel 8 News at the Fort Worth Zoo.
Never was poetry put to a better use. The literary world is quite fond of a gentleman named James H. Bond. The Southwestern Quarterly, birthed at Arlington, in reflected glory now moves on.
The truth.
The Greater Fort Worth chapter of the American Civil Liberties Union is filing suit against individual members of the Fort Worth Police Department Public Safety Director Cato Hightower, and Police Chief T.S. Walls for the violation of the civil rights of two black women arrested last summer by police in an incident arising over the recovery of one of the women's stolen property. The case will be handled by Mr. Mark Smith, a noted civil rights attorney from Lubbock who has handled similar cases throughout West Texas. In the suit, we charge that Officers D.L. Hickman and R.A. Hasty violated the Federal Civil Rights Act of 1964 by brutally and cruelly manhandling the women, causing them physical pain and injury. One of the women, Mrs. Hall, was 3 months pregnant at the time. She was thrown bodily into a paddy wagon. Her arm was twisted. She was shoved. She was not afforded the proper treatment at the jail. And her sister, who did nothing to warrant such treatment, as neither did Mrs. Hall, was treated even perhaps worse. Mrs. Grimes, the sister, was recuperating from major surgery. She had a surgical apparatus protruding from her side. The police were told this, and this resulted in one of the policemen taking his fist and pushing that apparatus in, causing serious bleeding. Neither of the women was afforded proper medical treatment.
What are some of the areas, or do you have more difficulty in some areas than you do others? For example, is there any difference in the ghettos, reaching the people in the ghetto areas?
Yes, this is more difficult. We do feel that we had somewhat of an undercount in this area in 1960.
Why was this so?
Well, we're not sure exactly, except that we couldn't find, it seemed to be narrowed down to the young black male between the ages of 18 and 30. For any number of reasons, they may not have wanted to be counted. We couldn't find them. I don't know exactly what it was.
How will you find them this year?
This year we're using a little different approach. We do have community education specialists for the first time this year.
They'll be working in these areas, will they?
Yes. They'll be working in the ghetto areas, and they'll be talking to groups, the urban group and the NAACP and SIR and LULAC, and wherever they can. They're going to spread the word that it's important that everybody be counted, particularly for the black people.
Thing I'm going to suggest, if George does get into the race, is that we have a series of debates all over the state. Right now we have a deficit in the state committee. And I think this series of debates on the great issues of our time would stimulate interest in the Republican primary and would help make up the deficit for the state committee.
What are some of these great issues, Doctor?
Well, certainly national defense is high. Our defense posture is dwindling. The Soviet Union is building up a military monster, and that if we don't do something to reverse the trend of the last 10 or 15 years, we're going to be in serious trouble.
What would you like to see us do in this area?
Well, we certainly should have implement the ABM, which was just barely voted this year by a 50-50 vote in the Senate. We should strengthen our Navy,
and that we should engage in extensive research and development in the area of missiles and vehicles of outer space. Yes, I support his program of Vietnamization, but I say it's not enough. I say we should engage in something called Asiatization. In other words, the problem isn't only Vietnam. The North Vietnamese are in Cambodia in great strength. They're in Laos in great strength. They're threatening Thailand. And I think that we should have a plan that will solve all of these things all at once. And that calls for some kind of a strong alliance of non-communist nations of Asia who will get together and carry on the bulk of the war. I know from my experience in Asia that they could carry the war more effectively than we are now carrying it on. What we're doing now is just engaging in a standstill.
Dr. Morris, what about some of the domestic issues? Inflation is one. What can we do to curb inflation?
Inflation is an important issue. I think President Nixon is to be commended for a stand on inflation, but I would put the emphasis on production. He's curbing the demand, and as a result, high interest rates and money scarcity are causing more problems than they are helping. And I think that we should put, in fighting inflation, we should put a greater stress on increased production.